Good morning. Good morning. It's 11 a.m. on the West Coast. It's noon on the East Coast. It's 6 p.m. in Germany. My name's Steve Brooks. Welcome to the Future of Retailing webinar. Great to have you along with us this morning. The devastation that COVID has brought on a global scale to retail has been incredibly surprising. Maybe, as some have said, accelerating the demise of fragile retailers, not only large brands, but also independents as well. But I believe retail is fighting back, and it's innovating not only in the midst of a pandemic, but also to meet the demands of the ever-demanding consumer. My guests today are Gary Burrows. Gary leads the Fit for Commerce malls and meeting places consultancy practice globally. He's developed, operated, and facilitated large-scale mixed-use retail investments and real estates in over 30 countries. He's worked for and with over 90 shopping centres across 36 countries in the UK, Europe, Middle East, and North Africa. My second guest is Jens Heitland. Jens is an innovation expert and coach, currently making his mark as the co-founder of a number of businesses, including Unlock 2020 and TNC. Jens has inspired and equipped hundreds of leaders with the innovation skills and strategies that they now need to create, build, and grow profitable and efficient businesses, as well as teams. Jens has had a high-paced career working in local construction, but also being the global head of innovation in IKEA centers in Sweden, leading and coaching hundreds of people around the world. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Welcome to the Future of Retail. Great to have you along.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for the warm introduction, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world.
Wherever everybody is, yeah. To kick things off, guys, I want to kind of look back at the last 12 months before we look forward. And as I was saying at the start, you know, the pandemic has really brought the demise of some very fragile retailers, and we've seen, you know, lots of names disappear off the landscape: Lord & Taylor, J. Crew, store closures, Victoria's Secrets, JCPenney, but also those independent retailers as well, the kind of bread and butter of small communities who just haven't been able to survive during lockdowns. Gary, perhaps we can start with you. What's your thoughts about the previous 12 months?
Well, it's been horrific, but it's if you follow the trajectory of digital and the how digital was progressing against physical retailing, if you follow that trajectory, it takes you to 2029, because UK was tracking at about 17 to 18% of online versus physical, and the US 14 to 15%. Both have taken 10-point jump. So now UK is about 27, 28, and the US 24, 25%. That would have normally, in normal circumstances, taken us to 2029. So everyone's been basically stating 2030 arrived in 2020, which is more or less true from a digital and online sales, e-commerce, omni-channel perspective, whatever you want to call it. If I could just kind of correct you on kind of one point there, there has been a demise of many retailers, and you know, a lot of people calling it thinning of the herd. But JCPenney has recently been rescued by Brookfield, I do believe. And there are a number of retailers that both Brookfield, Simon, and other landlords are in the process of rescuing. I believe that Brookfield and Simon have a $5 billion rescue fund to rescue viable retailers, and a lot of those retailers struggled and were going down because they didn't invest in digital quickly enough. They didn't double down on digital. And those that did have survived reasonably well the past year with the pandemic. But there are kind of green shoots, as they say. So let's hope that 2021 is going to be a better year for us all.
Sure. Jens, what's your take on it?
Yeah, as Gary said, I think it was devastating to see what's going on, and not just in retail, but specifically in retail. I agree. I think there are a lot of companies who have missed the train early on to be ready for what can happen. And I know nobody has planned that this will come, but I think it's a huge opportunity in one way for a lot of retailers to step up their game, to think differently, because they're forced to think differently, which I love, because innovation happens when you are constrained by a lot of things. And as more constraints you have, as more innovative you get. So I think that's the positive part of it. The challenge is real, and you see that. I was just doing a mission last week where I was going into the inner city center of the city where I'm living in. It's basically dead, and just seeing what's going on is terrible to a lot of people who are working in the retailers. So I think there's something we need to look into. How can we bring them up back again when we are allowed to open in the different parts of the world, and how can we support this with innovative ways of thinking? And even I think there are a lot of things you can do already inside of the lockdown, which not every retailer is utilizing.
Sure.
Like, I think there are different mindset. One mindset is more towards like, yeah, I can't do anything, and we need to close down, and that's how it is. And I have a little bit of online retailing, and I'm surviving. And there are others who are doubling down and trying to do their utmost to be available, building community and giving something to their future customers and existing customers. And I think that's a bit where retail can change now in building relationships and long-term focus.
Sure. I think for the larger retailers, that switch to online is an easier thing. Having had big online presence, and that takes an awful lot of money to actually do. That's not so easy for the smaller independent retailer trying to fulfill orders and so on. And we see retailers turning stores into almost miniature distribution centers. Target is one of those. H&M, I think, have been working on with that idea as well. What's your thought about how online, and everybody talks about the demise of retail because of online, but they can both coexist in modern day retailing. What's your thoughts on that, Gary?
Well, yeah, just touching on what Jens has said, I fully agree that one of the big wins coming out of COVID is going to be, and one of the great opportunities coming out of COVID is going to be town and city centres. Town and city centres have been decimated over the past 20 years by the big malls, certainly the out of town retailing have dragged a lot of the retail from town and city centres, and the big malls have decimated them. People have, from my experience, are moving back towards locally unique and authentic retailing and retailers. People want to see where the food comes from. They want to know that it's organic. They want to know that it's farm reared and organic and kind of whatever it may be. They want to know that craft beer is on the increase. Craft alcohol. I think alcohol was a big win during COVID. There was a 40% increase in
globally,
online sales.
Globally, yeah.
Yeah, and then also human nature dictates that we all feel bad about ourselves because we've eaten and drunk too much. And then the next biggest highest seller was home gym equipment.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think people are moving towards that kind of craft and locally unique and authentic kind of retail experience They want to know that who they're buying from and what they're buying and where that's come from, that kind of home reared or home brewed or whatever it may be. I think that resonates with people more than ever before. They're moving away from the big corporate and moving back to something that they know and love locally.
Sure.
I think with how that affects mals and how that affects I think there's a big shift change coming within the industry. I think, like I said earlier, that there is a thinning of the herd in America, where I am at the moment. There is a general belief that there's 25% of all mals will close permanently in the next 3 to 5 years. A lot of that is because they can't evolve quick enough. They can't adapt to these new meeting place methodology, the 16 points of placemaking methodology or meeting place methodology, the social, cultural, and community aspect of all of that. They can't adapt quick enough. They can't kind of get up to speed with the digital requirements, the what's being discussed as digital ecosystems, that the interconnectivity of Generation Z, who want on demand everything when they want, where they want, how they want, kind of at a time they want. So it's merging all of those, and if you haven't got the ability to do so or the finances to invest, that's why there's going to be this thinning of the herd. And I think there's like 1,600 mals in America, so 25% of those will close permanently. People like Amazon are buying them for logistics centers. Some of them have been converted into residential. Some of them have been converted into big cultural centers, art studios, and kind of there's a big one in Germany being converted into a big art for graffiti art. Apparently, there's all kinds of different things, but you touched on logistics. There is going to be a major shift change in the size and unit requirement for retailers and food and beverage operators and all mal tenants. There's a lot of grey stores now, or dark stores, as they say. So where you thought your pizza was being made from kind of whatever restaurant that you know and love down the road, it might be coming from a marquee tent in a car park. So there's some bizarre things happening, and so will people want stores as big as they traditionally had them? Probably not. Will they be shop windows? Yeah, I think there'll be more shop window space. Will we want more active lifestyle, leisure activities, family entertainment centers, things of that nature? Then definitely, I think there's going to be a lot more of that. Not sure where cinemas fit in all of that with the social distancing, but with the vaccine, hopefully that's gonna be a big kind of rescue.
Do you think that obviously during the pandemic they've had to adapt, and movies have been being brought out, through streaming services? I mean, that's going to impact their business. People are going to be reticent, I'm sure, for a long time about being packed into theatres as they are restaurants or stores. From an innovation point of view, Jens, what are the sorts of things do you think that they should be looking at in terms of driving people back, or at least giving them the confidence that they're in a safe environment?
Yeah, I think number one is really getting back to basic, which for me means tuning into your customers, into the people you engage with, and then really understand what are their needs, dreams, and desires and fears in this situation, and how you can help them overcoming them, or build and provide them opportunities in learning different things, bringing value to them as much as possible, which brings them back towards you. And that might mean you need to build a different concept around a cinema. That might mean, if to your former questions, like the digital and online or offline world, that means you need to do both. for me, there's no either or. It's you need to be in both worlds if you want to be successful. And I think that this way of thinking, tuning into your customers and their desires, needs, and dreams, that's what every retailer grows. At least when you start retailing, that's what you're figuring out. It's just when you get big and so successful, then you say it, but you're not really doing it. At least I've seen and work a couple of retailers where it's not really happening on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's where we need to go back, because you can only innovate if you're close to your customers and understand their needs and dreams and desires, and then produce or invent something which helps to bring something to them which is fulfilling their desires, which are maybe if not outspoken about. I think that's a bit, and it doesn't matter if you're a retailer or a cinema. It's like finding out what it is and how can you bring something in. I'm pretty sure you can do an amazing cinema experience where everyone is watching Netflix on your iPad or whatever, which you bring with you. So like, because people want to be with people, we're social animals, and that's what you see as well with a lot of people. I mean, we haven't met the last years. We only met via social media and this way, like with videos, and we're getting used to that. But everyone has the longing for meeting with other people again. So I think as soon as we're allowed to do that and things are opening up, there will be something going on. So it's now preparing for it and being ready and helping people to onboard to your services, to your retail, to your store again in a different way, that they feel safe and feel welcome. I think that's a huge opportunity.
No, I totally agree. I read something the other day that once we come out of pandemic, and you know, depending on who you listen to and read, you know, it could be as late as 2023. That they were almost projecting that we would be back to like the Roaring '20s of the 1900s. That people will be so COVID fatigue, pandemic fatigue, that we will want to be out, you know, anywhere we can, doing all the things that we haven't been able to do, left, right, and center, which is great for retailing, because I think that's going to, you know, drive people back into to anywhere that's open, if only for the social interaction. You mentioned, Gary, about high streets or main streets, as they call them here in the US, and the return to that kind of local shopping. I can tell you from experience, you know, growing up in London, you know, everybody shopped in one street, right? And you had all the big names, you know, Marks and Spencer's, that I'm sure everybody knows, and the world famous Woolworth. Do you think that's the way that, with the 25% cut in you know, projection on malls, do you think that's the way that retailing is going to head then? That we're going to become far more brand local, as maybe we can call it?
I kind of agree with what Jens said, and what the direction that you're kind of leading it in. That we are social animals, and we have been for millennia. You know, our Neanderthal brain requires that we are, you know, socially. You know, we love that social interaction. Whereas you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the base safety and access to food and access to the opposite sex and whatever it may be, and then, you know, building up to self-actualization. Sure. But we, when you look at that, our brain, the human brain, has barely changed in the last million years. You know, it's evolved to a certain degree, and we've become more competent with certain things. And but the reality is, computers, even in the past 60 years, have computing power has increased 1 trillion% in 60 years. 1 trillion%. You know, so I think the future's there. I mean, you have William Gibson. I say this a lot. William Gibson, the futurist, said the future's here. It's just unevenly distributed. And I do quote that a lot. I love that quote because, yeah, I look around and see autonomous vehicles. I see things that are changing and adapting and evolving, and where we are at the moment with supercomputers in our hand. You know, the Generation Z walking around with a supercomputer in your hand that's interacting with everything around it. But it's often, you know, it's air gapped. and it's only as fast as those two things there.
Sure.
In terms of its data speed. And then the next thing is voice recognition and voice activation. So, and that's already here. It just needs to evolve to a different level, and we need to have MALs that have Siri or Alexa or whatever it is, so you can actually talk to the MAL via your phone, and it will talk back to you or tell you where to go, or turn by turn navigation. We've already got that. We just need to upgrade it a bit more, and hey, we're going to have something fantastic. The next thing beyond that, beyond kind of voice activation and recognition and direction, is for these supercomputers to be able to take direction, instruction, and directly from your thought. And that may sound fairly futuristic, but it's already here. Elon Musk owns a company called Neuralink, which connects some kind of device to your brain and pulls data. You can think, and some things will happen, and that's already here. So that that William Gibson quote is kind of so accurate. It's unbelievable. So what happens when 2025 comes around, when all the great thinkers believe that computers, AI is going to surpass human intelligence from the first time in history? What happens? I don't know. Hopefully it's going to be utopian society where we don't need to work and everything will be done for us, and we just need to think, and that thing will arrive or be made or 3D printed or whatever it may be. It could be a utopian society, or it could be something else. But I think what people crave is that unique experience, that kind of authentic experience. They want an authentic and unique customer experience and customer journey. They want to feel as though they are going back to the old grocer who knew your name, knew your mum's name, and knew your brothers and sisters' names, and hey, how's Aunt Mary today, and blah, blah, blah. We've kind of lost that. We've lost that human touch. We've lost that human connection and interconnectivity. And I think as human beings, we crave that. That's why we go out and sit and have a coffee and watch the world go by, because we love people.
You're absolutely right. Sure. I mean, it's interesting. 75% of people or more still want to touch, feel, and engage with the product before they buy it. Right.
Yeah.
Over 64% of people will return and seek out a retail representative who sold them something that they were pleased with and want to have that same experience. So how does that transmit with technology? Because can we get warm and fluffy and feel the love, if you like, through that being an AI experience, or literally using a supercomputer walking around? Jens, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, from my perspective, sorry to jump in again.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
I'm waffling on. No, from my perspective, I think if you look at the business model that the retailers have now, and if you look at like the Amazon Go radar technology that's coming in, that can tap everything, so you can go in, choose what you want. It will recognize who you are, and if you walk out of the store with it, it will come off your debit or credit card. But that means that if you don't need people stood behind tills, the overall experience is much better, and you haven't got to queue up and you're rushing to pay for your car, or maybe, or you're going to miss your train or your flight or whatever. You can just go in and shop at your leisure. But it means that more people will be available for that human experience, for that customer service. So we help you with that, and come over to this kind of this augmented reality mirror, and hey, that red looks cool on you, and kind of 12 or kind of hey, and you can have more of an engaged process by not having people queuing up at till points.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. To that point, I think the technology is still evolving in all of that topics. And for me, technology is not a means in itself. It's a facilitator of things, and we need to learn to use it properly. Because if you take the three of us, we are not grown up with the phone, at least with a smartphone. in that way. Like my 3-year-old daughter, she will not know the old way anymore. For her, that's a normal thing. And most probably when she's 18, that thing is so old that it's like old telephones for us. So I think the technology is evolving, and we need to learn to use it in different ways. I'm fascinated by how retailers are adapting and or not adapting. Maybe just a short example. I was looking last week into helping local retailers to understand how they can use technology and like social media in different ways to quickly gain something right now, which is fairly easy. Like you don't need to have a complicated online store if you're not into that. You basically just need Facebook and or Instagram, and you have an online store. You have a medium which you can use. You have a platform which you can use to communicate with customers around the whole world. But you can as well do that in your local area. So it's a tool that helps you to do things in a different way. It's just being open to it and using it in a way that it works. Again, with the human effect of dialing it into your customer needs and understanding them and seeing what they're, because everyone is on Facebook. I was just reading it the other day. It's like, I don't know, 80% of the whole world is on Facebook in one or the other way. So it's not anymore for the youngsters. Maybe TikTok and so on. It's more towards until 25. But even there, you can do huge business already on TikTok, which nobody is looking into from a seriousness perspective. If you're a big brand, I'm everywhere. And I can highly encourage everyone who is doing business in any way, especially retailers, engaging with their current customers, but as well future customers through technology. But then on top of that, having this, like Gary said, having this, when there's a physical moment, having that super special, that is so special that you really feel special as a customer, where you're attracted again by the brand, by what it stands for, and then having a true conversation, having a true relationship. And then that's, I think, what you need to find out, and we all need to learn. How do you build relationships in a dual way, or even more than dual? It's like, it's online, offline, digital, not digital. How do you build relationship in a long-term perspective and as well keep them alive? And that's fascinating to find out as a business, as a retailer.
So we're agreed that technology and retail can coexist, in a very, very strong way, and that people will that's going to give people the opportunity to offer better customer service, maybe speed up the kind of transaction part of that, which is great. Let's look at both the beginning and start of that then, in terms of what do you see the priorities then for attracting people back into retail? I mean, we could rely on that, roaring 20s, that everybody's going to want to go everywhere, right? But that's, it's kind of a kind of perhaps a very focused approach to things, and then the communication after the purchase, because right now I think it's less than 1% of retailers communicate well with people once they were leaving a physical environment. So maybe take one of those each. Jens, how do you think people get people into the location? And Gary, maybe what's the journey afterwards?
Into the location is building relationships right now, caring about your customers, and don't focusing too much on selling only. It's like, what can you do as a retailer to provide value to your customers? And that can be as simple. Hey, that's the dress of the day. I'm wearing this. What do you think? Let's have a talk. What are you wearing? What is the best dress? How do you dress up for this occasion, for that occasion? Like, if you're a fashion retailer, you can engage with your customers via Snapchat, whatever you're using digital right now, building a community around different topics. Hey, we're the blue t-shirt company, whatever. We are selling shoes, and these are shoes, and you tell the story. You engage with your customers and basically educate them on the way of what it is, why your product is special, why your service is special, and that will attract people to your brand. They will come. I think that's no doubt for me. If you do this, if you take now the time where we are working from home, where maybe the store is not open, attracting customers in. But I would even go so far, if you're a retailer in a city center location, like You need to sit in your shop window right now and doing your online business, because everyone knows the radio shows where they have a window and people are standing in front of the radio show, right? If I would be retailer in a physical environment, I would be sitting in my shop window right now and selling online and waving to everyone who is passing by, and doing little stickers on the windows. Like this, small things will create engagement, and then you can still have a hashtag or whatever. Take a photo of me and put it on Instagram and tag me, and you will get a discount or whatever. Just these small things, just being a little bit of crazy in a way of thinking, which helps you to attract and engage with people in a different way you have ever done. That can be done from big brands and small ones. It costs almost nothing.
Sure. Gary, the other end of that journey then, the communication to bring people back, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the traditional media outlets of how to promote and market your brand are effectively dead. I mean, if you look at social media, like Jens was saying, everyone's on Facebook. In fact, 3 billion people are spending more than 3 hours a day on social media. That is insane. You know, when you look at if you can get something out on social media and you can hook people and get them interested, if you've only got 1% of that market, you're smashing it, you're storming it. It's an awesome business. So, you know, I think it's evolving to this Generation Z or Generation CX, whatever you want to call it. It's resonating with them rather than resonating with the old dudes like us. So we didn't grow up with a mobile phone. Well, it was the big brick came in when I was young, when I was a lad. But no, there are some really cool things out there that are evolving and developing. But it's all about that resonance with the individual on a personalized basis, that personalized customer journey and personalized experience. And how do you get that? Well, you know, you need to capture data. You need to kind of understand who that person is and where they come from. You know, tiptoeing through GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations, but that's doable. You know, we've created a system that when you enter a premises, you get a digital key that is a part of an enclosed system like Facebook. You know, if you want to walk into a mall, and that mall or meeting place knows something about you and it knows, you know, so you can resonate with it, you can connect with it, and you can feel good about the process, and it can streamline what you're interested in looking at. I go into a mall and there may be 300 stores within that mall, and in reality, I'm interested in 10 of them. I'm interested in kind of Loke shoes, or, you know, if I like Loke shoes, I'm likely to like Churchill shoes. If I like North Face, I'm likely to like Columbia. Yeah. So if it knows that I regularly purchase in North Face, and and there's a sale on in Columbia, it will hit me with that. And hey, that's cool because it's streamlining it to what I want. And if you look at Facebook and the algorithms within Facebook and why it's so successful, is because it streamlines the content that you're interested in looking at, then upsells you the content. That's why it keeps you hooked longer, and that's why you're kind of there. And then when you're not looking at the content, it sends you a message to say, hey, your friend's looking at this, and then, oh, if my friend's looking at it, hey, I might be interested. So it's like that you know, what we've developed within Fit for Commerce are algorithms that understand who people are. But when going back to the beginning of this conversation and why you know, the tenants and retailers, there's a historic mistrust between landlords and tenants, and that's the big barrier that we need to break down. That's where we need to. That's the win. That's the big win. The future's collaboration. And unless retailers and landlords start collaborating, everyone loses. It's a lose-lose. If they collaborate, it's a win-win. And what we've created is a system, an enclosed system that the landlord hosts that pulls transactional data from all retailers. And if you're looking at turnover only rents or percentage rents, then hey, it's reasonable that the landlord understands the transactional data, but as part of an enclosed system, a secure enclosed system. So human beings like us can't log onto it and download everyone's a database and then sell it on, because that's where Facebook have won. They have this enclosed system that only allows the system itself to understand who you are and what you are and what you're interested in looking at. Mm-hmm. And then the computer, the Facebook bots, the algorithm, that's what kind of upsells you. And that's what we've developed for Mal's. We've gone way beyond what you would call, and what people are calling, a digital ecosystem. We've actually developed a neural network for a Mal or a meeting place, which connects the landlord, the tenant, and the customer. And then also on the back face, all the front-facing stuff, the customer service, the curbside pickup, buy online, BOPIS, buy online, pickup in store, hands-free shopping, all of those kind of things, all of that front-end stuff. All of that good and interesting customer interaction. Then a module that does the marketing and PR, promotes and allows the landlord to help the retailer help themselves. And then the back end, which is all of the embedded operational CAFM systems, the computer-aided facilities management. All of those get plugged into it as well if you go with the full system. And then you can actually, as a landlord or as an asset manager, you can look into the system and get the dashboard output and see by every single customer, you can understand how much it costs to operate that building based on the 2 hours that I was there, and that how much did it cost to get Gary Burrows here and keep the building warm or cool or whatever it may be. And then they can say, well, okay, I'm spending, $300 or, 1,000 dirhams, whatever it may be. And then they can kind of work out this kind of performance metric that says, hey, these are the top performing customers. And then these are the and hey, that's an interesting data. These are top performing. Why are they top performing? But equally, these are not performing. These are our worst customers. Why is that? And for me, it's probably more, why are they're spending lots of money. Let's keep them. But they're not spending money. Let's get them to spend more. So there's some really exciting stuff coming through right now. And
Fantastic.
to say Fit for Commerce at the forefront of that, which was a shameless plug, but there you go.
That's all right. Jens, I feel I need to give you the opportunity then for a shameless plug, but just before that, I just want to ask you this: given that we have Amazon and we have Facebook and we've got Instagram, is there space in the market for somebody to be even more creative, meet and plug a gap that those guys are maybe missing? Just like Gary was saying, why aren't 30% of our consumers spending as much as that top 20% or whatever? Do you think there's there's a gap in there for somebody to be very innovative?
Absolutely. I think there's always opportunities. You see this, for example, right now. There's one of the new social networks, which is called Clubhouse, which is audio only. Don't know if you've heard about it.
I've seen it.
That's exploding right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can think of, hey, we have so many social networks and they're all available and everyone is using them, everyone knows them. Why is there a space for another social network? And what these guys did amazingly is focusing on voice only. So you can't text to anyone. You have only voice. It's long-term relationship building, which triggers exactly right now the needs everyone has, which is contacting with other people. And I think it's the same way when you look into retail and landlord and retail and tenant topics, where it's like, how could you utilize what is the gap, and finding that out and putting it from a need perspective, again, starting with the customer and the people you want to engage with, in a way that it works for you. And the tricky thing is that a lot of people talking about these topics, I mean, we have been talking about meeting places, I don't know how many years, but a lot of companies still not doing it. the same with what Gary and his team is doing. For me, that's a no-brainer. Everyone should use this technology to build the knowledge and gather the data. What companies are not doing is not changing the culture and the way of thinking. Because if I would be, I mean, I will most probably never be like a landlord in that perspective. But if I would be a landlord, I would be using that data and look into how can I change my business model to use the market in a completely different way than any other landlord would be doing. Like way back when Gary and I worked together, we did a project where we looked into what if we changed the mall to take an entrance fee into a shopping mall, and everyone in the industry would say, "Are you mad in doing that?" But that's exactly this ways of thinking, which by doing small test projects, figuring things out, which will lead you to the solution. Like Clubhouse is now booming in a social media context. They haven't started with, "Hey, we are doing this." You're not coming up with the idea that's working and it's raising everywhere in one day. You need to put yourself out there and grind through it, finding out, validating, learning every day. And I think that's possible if you have the data. If you don't have the data, then it's always gut feeling. You think, yeah, the sun is shining, maybe you should switch on the heating or cooling or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's still happening. I mean, we're laughing about this, but it's still happening. I see that. And I've seen it the last 20 years. And I guess it will be the next 20 years as well. But these are opportunities for every retailer, every landlord to look into what can we utilize technology in changing things, learning about what we're doing, and then looking. That's where I always support with is how do you change the business model of your business and finding out completely different revenue streams you have never thought about. And I think that's big opportunities. And for me, that's all rooted in what is the company culture. Are you, as a leadership team, management team of a company, allowing people to innovate on a daily basis? Do you make this possible in your ecosystem or not? Are you open with working with partners, working with your ecosystem around you, or are you just closed and trying to save everything? Hey, I have a good idea and I'm not telling it to anyone because I think they will steal it. You can try it. Nobody will steal it because everyone is busy with something else. And I think these topics are super opportunities for everyone right now. It's the time.
Yeah, I support that. The reason why I was smiling when Jens was saying about the weather is way back when I was at Westfield, London, White City in Hammersmith. Because of where it was located and kind of where we were, every time it rained, it was a hard rain and a persistent rain. There was an 11% increase in footfall. So everyone just dashed inside the mall and just spent kind of a lot of time inside the mall. And hey, that was great because they bought coffee, ice cream, drinks. They shopped. But it was always reactive. It was always a reactive situation. And when you look back on that and say, hey, wouldn't it be easy to install a computer system that has a predictive model based on the weather that allowed when all of these people come rushing in, extra people come rushing into the mall, that if you know in the morning it's going to pour down in the afternoon, you can tell the retailers, and retailers can upscale their staffing models to provide that customer service in a predictive basis. So you know in advance, and you can provide the service when the customer when the customer is demanding at that time. So you're only as good as your last sale. And if you've got the people there because you've got a predictive model, it's super easy. But hey, it's just it seems to be so hard.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it reminded of my very, very early retail career with Woolworth, and I worked with a guy ahead of his time, a guy called Bob Monksfield, who was, in my opinion, a retail genius, who would have us, when it was raining, pick up the umbrella stand and rush it to the front of the store. And this is long before anything digital. But it's that kind of, as you say, projecting and predicting ahead. Jens, you were gonna say something.
Exactly the same thing. Because it's not reinventing the wheel. It's doing what a lot of retailers did 50 years ago. I mean, Gary and I worked in IKEA. The founder of IKEA did exactly the same thing like you just explained with the umbrellas when it rained, because he was knowing it works.
Yeah.
And I think it's just using this way of thinking in different contexts, which we are not used to, because we're more linear thinking quite often, at least. And as bigger the company is, as more you look into your silo, and you don't see these connections anymore. And I think that's what we need to relearn to really think, like Gary is saying, like a neural network, where it's like you're a brain inside an ecosystem. You need to have the data, and you need to utilize the data. There are a lot of companies out there who are still just focusing on, hey, we need to get the data, but they're not using them. That also doesn't help at all.
Yeah. You're right.
If I could just jump in on that one.
Sure.
In terms of I said that the future is calibration. Yes, I believe that absolutely wholeheartedly. The future is also flexibility and adaptability. And when you look at online retailers can go in the morning and sit down and kind of innovate with people like Jens, who's kind of like off the chart innovator, and kind of bringing Heitland innovation in to do a moonshot. And sorry, I'm plugging you now, Jens.
That's fine.
to do a moonshot, and then by the end of the day, that online retailer can walk away with an active, adapted, and evolved operating model that is live and working. Whereas the physical retailers, this is where they've fallen over. It's taken turning the QE2. It's a slow, process of policies and procedures and changing things and adapting and board meetings, and it just goes on and on and on, they're just not quick enough. So it's that adaptation and flexibility, and I'm seeing more and more digitally native online retailers coming into the physical space.
Yeah.
And going back to where I started my career in Debenhams, Debenhams has just been bought out by Boohoo, the online company, and I don't think that, from everything I'm reading, they're not going to have a physical presence. It's all going to be an online. So they've bought the brand, they've bought all the back office side of it and the logistics side of it, and they're going to run an online presence, which will be Debenhams of the future.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of innovation going on online, and not as much as quickly physically. So I'm starting to see a lot of this digitally native stepping into the physical space, where the historic type of lease structure is not going to work, because digitally native, they're not used to that kind of, what do you mean, a 25-year lease or a 10-year lease or even a 7-year lease? I'll sign something, and if it works, it works.
It works, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe it's on a performance basis of hey, if it's not working, for a 3-month window and we don't hit our performance, we have the right to exit. But at the end of the day, when you look at that, the landlord doesn't want somebody who's sat there not performing, and the retailer doesn't want to sit there if they're not performing. So you can work and evolve and adapt and generate and innovate. But if it is generally not working, then why keep them somebody that's painful both sides?
Do you think we'll get to the stage where platforms like Etsy and Shopify, and I know Etsy have already experimented with this in a small way, that you'll almost have a kind of Etsy retail store that they will revolve retailers around in, just to keep people interested and move the consumer through kind of different people. I mean, I think that's something that they should be looking at.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry,
I think these are huge opportunities, and that's exactly like you said before. It's like thinking differently.
Yeah.
Because if you just look into what are the management teams of these big retailers right now, they're all more in your or our ages, they're not the youngsters. They have maybe a couple of youngsters, but they're thinking in the old world. A lot of retailers, and that's not their fault. They're just grown up in that world, and that's just how you learn and evolve over time. That's one of the reasons I have built up a reverse mentorship business with 11 young entrepreneurs who are helping leaders of today learn from leaders of tomorrow and have an exchange on an ongoing basis. I think that's the way where we all need to rethink and relearn. And with technology, we need to get faster in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got about 10 minutes left, gentlemen. I just want to talk about maybe the winners and losers for the future as well. As we know, during the last 12 months, grocery and alcohol, as we said earlier, home improvements and furniture and so on has done well. Home gyms and that kind of market. Apparel has suffered terribly. Malls have suffered. What do you think the winners and losers are going to be in the next 12 months, Gary?
Well, I think department stores have suffered terribly. That's not to say that department store is dead. The department store, it's like, the deadmals.com and the mall is dead. It's not. It's just, it's going through a
change.
A period of change and evolution that it's not used to, and in terms of speed of change, speed of evolution. And that's where this kind of like rapid prototyping model, understanding how customers are shopping these days, and why people are spending three hours a day on social media. Hey, that's the platform. Let's why aren't we directing down that route? Understanding more, like Jens was saying, if we understand more critical data of what people are doing and how they're doing it, we can better service their interest and their focus, and what triggers them, what motivates them, like Facebook does. It gives you the content that you're interested in looking at. There are models out there. There are, is it FOMO, fear of missing out? That's Leon Goldwater, who's a super innovator himself. This is like a mini department store filled with all of these like pop-ups, where people are trying different kind of retail models, and if it doesn't work, they try it for 3 months. If it doesn't work, they close down, and he brings in the next one. So innovative and so creative. It's like an innovative hub of retail. I think it's going to be more like that. The future will be more flexible like that and more innovative like that. But people will still want the traditional. And people will still want that local service and that kind of locally unique and that authentic experience. But I will say that also the model, the lease model, will change in terms of not just looking at turnover only rents or percentage rents, but wrapping in the online sales to a physical store. So if you are an anchor tenant, maybe a supermarket or a hypermarket, you get special discounted anchor tenant rates for your rent and a discounted service charge. And from a customer perspective of online sales, of if you're ordering your goods, your weekly grocery shop, it's likely to be fulfilled from that supermarket or hypermarket. So why is the landlord not receiving a proportion of that as a rent? They should be. And if that's true and it's being fulfilled from store, then there is no reason why a geographical ring fence around that store that the landlord shouldn't be getting a percentage of that income. There's massive changes going on, and it's all about innovation. It's all about flexibility. It's all about collaboration, and it's all about adapting and engaging digital for the Generation Z, Generation CX, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And shopping.
Yeah, Jens, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of things you said, Gary. For me, it's like the mindset. the ones that are changing and are able to adopt their mindset in looking into learning on a daily basis, maybe even going back to the roots of how they learned when they started up their business, just in a different environment, in a different setting. These are the ones which will be surviving and will be blooming in the future. The ones who are building relationships, true relationships, where it's not about, hey, I'm selling as fast as I can, who are really looking into how can I build a long-term relationship with my customers, and even if I'm having less customers, they will spend more. So where sustainability is a given, where you don't discuss about sustainability in the wider sense as well. I think it's also the ones who are understanding that you need to be where the customers are in the first thing, and then how do you build a relationship where the customers are, and then inviting them to your home, which is then your store if you're a physical retailer. Like we know, we are all humans. Like, you will never go to someone else's home if you're not invited, or rarely do it. You will not go to someone else's home if you don't know that person. So I think there needs to be a normal relationship building process, and this way of thinking, this way of adapting of the thinking specifically for large and big retailers will change it completely. That will change the game, because the people will love you for the relationship, for the value you're providing, not just for the goods you're selling.
Yeah.
And then they will come back again and again and again. I think that will change the game for a lot of retailers. But sorry to say, we will as well see a lot of retailers will not change. A lot of retailers will suffer through the pandemic and then say, "Have we managed?" and still do the same.
Same thing.
Which I think is an opportunity for everyone else. That's just how the game is.
Yeah,
but there are some things that buck that trend, and there are some retailers that buck that trend, and that kind of the way things are moving forward, who are unique retailers, and they are true to themselves and authentic. People like Primark. Primark have steadfastly refused to go online, but they are a fantastic, innovative, creative, flexible, and kind of adaptable retailer. They know what they're good at, and they stick to that, and they are awesome, and they trade their socks off.
Cool. One final question: yes or no answers from you, because we're running out of time. Brick and mortar.
Very, very black and white.
It's a very grey. It's a very grey question, though.
Different shades of grey, but
brick and mortar retail, dead or alive?
Alive.
Alive, definitely.
Yeah, me too. Guys, it's been fascinating having you on. Two gentlemen where the glass is always half full, which I love about you both. Thank you for that. This has been The Future of Retail with Gary Burrows, Jens Heitland, and myself, Steve Brooks. Thank you all for watching. We'll post this on social media, on LinkedIn and through all our other platforms. Stay tuned for some more webinars. We have the pop-up, what's happening with pop-up retail next week. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me today. We'll see you all again soon.
Thank you, Jens. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Gary.
Bye-bye.
Bye.